Hi, it's Wendy from the Barrington Library. I'm going to show you today how to make a cardboard weaving loom so that you can make this little woven coaster. So, and you know, once you learn this, you can make a bigger loom and make bigger projects like a hot plate or something very cool, while hanging even. So let's get started. I'm going to show you first what you'll get in your kit. You'll receive a piece of cardboard. You'll also be receiving a variety of some colored yarns that we had left over from projects this summer. Also a little bunch of cotton yarn, and that's going to be your base for your frame of your project. You'll also be receiving a yarn needle. It's a pretty much blunt end so that you don't get poked, and a nice big hole, a nice little eye there to get your thread through. And I might throw in a few paper clips because I'm going to show you how I use these to thread my yarns through. So I'm going to turn the camera down now and we'll get started so you can see the project. It's pretty fun. Here we go. All right, so when you get your piece of cardboard, what I figured is we would take a little measurement, at least 1 inch in from each side, and just make a good long mark so that we're not making any cut further out because we don't want it to be too weak. It would fall apart on your project. And then bring your ruler close to the edge, and I marked off every 1/4 inch. So when I marked off the 1/4 inch, it gives us quite a few marks here, and that's what we're going to take our scissors and just do a small little snip, and that's where our yarn will be going through. I've already snipped this edge. I don't know if you can see those edges, and I'll just do this one real quick with you. Alrighty. I probably go in a 1/2 inch, I mean a 1/4 inch at the most. It keeps it spaced nicely too, so your cotton string is not too tight together. And this could be about what you're hoping close to what the width of your project will be. It does get a little bit smaller in there, so we'll take this, and then you would take your cotton string and hold it on your cardboard and pull it through the 2 teeth there. And once you've pulled it through, take a piece of tape and tape this on the back. And then come around and up through this one. And you're going to go and just do your whole project, your whole cardboard like this. These little knobs on the end are not very strong, but that's okay. It just keeps a guide on where to keep your cotton string. Daisy. Back and forth and back and forth. I think this ends up being about 18 or 20 slits. I think it's 5 inches wide, so it might be 20. Go around and around. So, you know, if you wanted to do a really small project, whoops, excuse me, this is falling apart here. There we go. I'll untangle this. Don't want any knots. Sorry about that. Well, there we go. And that happens, so just take your time and untangle. Like even with the colored yarn, if you get some bunches, they might end up being in knots. Take your time, untangle it. It's not that bad. They're not very long pieces, so it's pretty easy to untangle. And as we're wrapping these, you can see that this cotton thread is kind of tight to the cardboard. That's okay. It also keeps the shape better when it's a little snug. That's all right. Now, when we're putting our yarn through, that's one that if you pull too tight on some, it might make it a funny shape. So I'll show you that in just a minute as we get there. But yeah, this is pretty wide. I might end at about 16 or so. All right, the next one around, we're going to just end, because this is just for a little coaster. And then partway up, you cut it right off. There we go. And then take a piece of tape and tape it again. And you just want that really snug so that it doesn't fall out. Now this is the front side. And to get started, it's pretty interesting that I found before I got my needles, these little paper clips worked pretty well. I just tied a piece of yarn onto the end and put a little piece of tape around it, and it makes it so that when you want to go in and out, because weaving is will go in and out of every other line, it goes in pretty smooth, and you can pull it through. And if this comes up, we're going to go down the next one, up, down, up, down, up. So that worked pretty well. So you can use paper clips if you want, and what I did is I put paper clips around a few of my colors just so that they were all ready to go ahead and thread through. But you can do it individually with your needle too. So, whoopsie daisy, we'll just grab this yarn needle. I'm going to show you how to start with this piece of green. I like to loosen this to make sure there are no knots just to start with, because we are pulling it all the way through. There we go. And when you have a needle like this, sometimes it's really hard to thread that yarn through it and not have it separate. Let me get a piece of paper so I can show you a really neat way. There we go, so that you can see against this. If you take your yarn and fold it over your needle and pinch it and pull the needle out, it's kind of flat right there. Doesn't show so well with my Band-Aid. But when it's squeezed and it's flat, sometimes it's easier to just pull that right through. So, I don't know. We can try it again, see if I can show you a little bit better with a different finger. So you hold this on, and you squeeze it tight, and squeeze it between your thumb and your finger. There. And now, take this circle, line it up sideways so that you can see the eye of the needle, and push that yarn right in. So it does make it a little easier to thread it all the way through. It doesn't separate all your yarn ends. So now that I've got that on, we're going to move this out of the way. And I would say even mark off if you want on your cardboard. This will probably be our coaster size, so maybe from here to here. And you just start by going every other one. Go under and over and under and over and under and over and under and, whoops, well that's okay. Just pull that how I am. I'm so close, okay. So where we ended with this one, coming up, we're gonna go over and under and over and under, and make sure you really go every other one, okay? If you skip it, do two by mistake, it's going to change the pattern and it won't look right. So you might have to pull it out maybe later on, go backwards and do it another row over. That's okay. Don't get discouraged, because once you get the hang of this, it goes pretty quickly. And then we're going to pull this through. Pull. Ooh, this is a long piece of yarn. Here we go. And then we want to have a tail hanging out. Just leave it hanging there. Once we get weaving, it'll just stay and it won't slide through again. So now when we ended this row, it was over. So now we're going to start the next row right above it and go under. So we go exactly the opposite of what that row was. So, and then I'll pull it through. And then I came up, so now I have to go down, up, down, up, oops, down and up, there. And see how I'm doing just a little section here? I'm not pulling the whole string through every time my needle comes up. I'm going to go across the whole length and then pull that yarn through. It's a little bit easier that way. And we don't worry so much about the knots the same. All right, so there's that. So now I'm going to hold this one and pull this through. Until it gets very close to being here. And then I'll pull it with my finger, snug it up kind of. Now here's, oh, I forgot to say that this is one more thing that's going to be in your kit. It's the best tool, a plastic fork. So what we're going to do is take this fork and pull it right, it goes right between those cotton strings so well. And you can see there's still a little bit of a loop here, so I'm going to kind of hold it so I don't pull too much. And I'm gonna pull that through. There we go. And then a little more maybe. Okay, then snug this up again. Put it so those lines are right next to each other. There we go. Now if you do a couple lines and then have to snug them up, that's okay too. So the next row, this one was under. So I'm gonna go the opposite. Can you see how good that is? Over, under. So now this one's gonna be over, under, over, under, over. There we go. Pull a little bit through. There we go. Then the next one goes, there we go, under, over, under, over, under. Here we go. There we are. And then the last one is down and under and over and under. Here we go. There we are. So now I'm going to hold this string and just pull this one through. Ooh, and there's quite a bit of yarn. So I might get a knot once in a while. Like I said, just take your time and untangle that knot. So, all right, so now I'm going to snug it up a little bit and use that really special tool I have to snug these lines together. There we go. So can you see that pattern starting? That's pretty good, right? I'm going to show you on another board. Let me set this aside. I did a little bit of yellow on this board, and I wanted to show you this because I didn't know if you could notice how the side here goes in a little bit. It's when every time I pull it through, if I pull it really snug, it pulls my strings together. So if you start out at the very beginning and you're pulling pretty snug and it squeezes these together, just do the whole thing all the way up that way. If you're pretty loose and it's not so snug, try not to get tight as you go, but keep it comfortably loose, but no big loops on the end. And I'll show you why. This is the first, so far my only coaster that I've made. And can you see that I started out loose and then it got a little bit skinny at the top. It's a little, not quite as wide as I went up to the top. So it's just important to try to stay with the same pressure the whole way through. A little bit of squeezing in is fine. I mean, actually, like I said, if you're tight and you squeeze through the whole coaster size, it should be pretty tight, because later on when we cut these strings off, it won't matter how wide we started. So I'm just going to show you now, if you want to change your color, I'm going to do this. I'm going to cut a tail off, right? Leave it right there because it's not going to end up being a problem, because we're going to be fixing that at the very end. And then what you do is just grab the next color, and whatever this one was, this was under, so I would go over, under, over, under, over, and then come back under and then up, and pull these through. I do want to come down and leave a tail. Okay. All right, and then there we go. So this is this, and it's easier when you're going up and over, under, over, when you're a little bit further away from the stuff that you've already woven in there. So just go ahead and finish that line through. Use your trusty fork. Next line, okay, and so on. So now you have a choice. When you get your colored yarn, it'll probably have 2 or 3 colors in a little bit of a ball. And you can separate the colors like I did, so you can decide what color pattern you want to do on your coaster. Or if you just leave it solid in one ball, you might have like, ooh, a big part of your coaster is purple with just a little bit of red at the end. Or a big part of it might be yellow with a little bit of green at the end. So I liked separating my yarns because it let me decide if I wanted to do a few colors all together to it. Let me see which ones go together well. Oopsie, there's a loop at the end there. So I'm gonna pull it just a little bit, but not too much, because this is it's getting tighter. So there you go. So go on like that and do what colors you would want. I did a little bit of everything on this one just so that I could see how they came together and what colors went nice next to each other. I'm going to show you with this one how to get rid of all these little tail pieces, because you might have some on this side and some on that side. And I wanted to show you, and it's with the needle at the end. That's why we ended up giving you a yarn needle and not just depending on paper clips to thread them through. You can almost see there's a piece of purple that went underneath this orange at the end. What you're going to do is take these little tails that are sticking out, put it on your needle, and we're going to turn around. Oh, this is a short tail. So see how short these tails are? It's better to make them a little longer like these ones are. These are a good length, because then you can get your needle in there to do your work. And then what you do is you come back through this end and you just go through those loops on the end. I'm actually going to go into one of the purples. I don't know if it'll show up or not, but whoops, not to. And I'm going to pull it through. And there we go. And then trim that off. And then I like to thread it up through its own color because it hides better. This purple is pretty long in a short area right here, but I think what I'll do is thread it through this purple side and go into maybe one of the reds. So we will see if I can. But see how I really like threading my needle that way. Just pinch it and hold it real tight and put that needle's eye right over and squeeze it up through. There we go. And then snug this up and then trim off that little piece. So eventually you'll hide them, squish them and play with them, and they'll hide pretty good. Spread this out a little bit more, and so eventually they'll all get sewn in. We have a couple on each side. The edges will be a little bit thicker, that's okay. And that will be your little coaster for if you had a cup of hot cocoa, or and if you decided that you wanted to make it, this one looks like it's a little bit wider. Maybe this could be square and it could do a hot dish on your table or something like that. So I hope you have fun with this. When you're at the very end, what you'll do is when this is finished, you will come onto the back and you will just cut these all apart. Oops, daisy. And because everything has been woven together on the front, it all holds together well. It doesn't fall apart. And then you need to turn this over and pull all these strings out of your little slots. There we go. We got a few more. Oh, okay. And then, if this were a square trivet or coaster, you would take these end strings and you would tie them 2 to 2 and do a square knot. One, and then this one goes over and through, and you'll snug them up and tighten them. Once you get, I'd go all the way across and do them all, and then you will have little knots at the back, at the end, and then trim off your tassels. So they're about 1 inch long. Alrighty, it's a pretty simple craft. You might ask a grown-up to help get you started, or to make sure that you're starting off the right way, and then when you get that rhythm and going up and down, it will just move right along and you'll have a really good time with it. So I hope you enjoy making your homemade cardboard loom and be able to weave some nice coasters, or a little bit bigger. You know, just because we're giving you this piece of cardboard, you might have something bigger at home. And have fun with it. I hope you have a great day, everybody. Thanks. Bye-bye.